The documentary opens with a grand, sweeping aerial shot of an empire at the height of its glory. Sunlight gliding across gleaming stone palaces, bustling markets filled with fragrance and color, and massive ships sailing into rich harbors. Every frame shouts prosperity, but as the narrator begins, the tone subtly shifts. Every golden age hides a shadow, the voice says, echoing over visuals of lavish architecture. Beneath this shining surface, the empire's wealth isn't as solid as it appears. It is built on something far more fragile: credit, trust, and borrowed fortune. We move deeper into the empire's ruling chambers, where advisors gather around enormous maps and tall stacks of financial records. These halls, decorated with gold and marble, now hold discussions filled with quiet tension. As trade expands and military victories mount, the empire grows increasingly dependent on loans. The banks, once careful and conservative, now compete fiercely, offering loans to powerful merchants, noble families, even rival kingdoms. Easy credit becomes the empire's favorite addiction. The narrator explains how prosperity changed the psychology of the leadership. Risk didn't look like danger anymore. It looked like opportunity. Borrowing didn't feel like burden. It felt like strength. This mindset leads to the fateful decision. A foreign kingdom, politically unstable but strategically important, begs the empire for a massive loan, larger than anything ever approved in its history. Advisors warn the emperor repeatedly. Reports highlight rebellions, droughts, and an unpredictable ruler. But the empire wants influence, wants expansion, wants respect. And so pride drowns out caution. Cinematic close-ups show the signed agreement, ink drying like a silent omen. Music grows heavier. The narrator whispers, "Some signatures shape the future, others destroy it." The loan meant to strengthen the empire becomes the seed of its collapse. The rest of the section shows how this enormous loan fuels temporary illusions of prosperity. Celebrations fill the streets, new monuments rise, the army expands, and the emperor believes he has secured his legacy. But the narrator warns the audience, prosperity built on borrowed money is not prosperity. It is a countdown. As the final shot ends, we see a crack forming across the empire's treasury floor. Thin, silent, almost invisible, but destined to spread. The film transitions into a slow, foreboding rhythm. Years pass. At first, nothing seems wrong. The empire continues its festivities, its trade routes remain busy, and its influence expands. But in the foreign kingdom, the borrower, things begin falling apart. Political factions clash, crops fail, and a rebellion erupts near its capital. Payments to the empire arrive late, then smaller, then not at all. The documentary shifts to intense scenes inside imperial banks, clerks panicking, ledgers filled with red ink, and officials whispering urgently. One loan, the narrator states, is never just one loan. It is connected to thousands of lives. The empire had used that massive loan as collateral for merchant investments. Merchants used those investments to secure shipments. Shipments supplied markets. Markets fed the empire. When the loan collapses, the entire structure shakes. The chain reaction begins subtly. Merchants pull back investments, banks restrict withdrawals, and wealthy families move their gold into secret vaults. But soon the crisis becomes undeniable. Shops close, prices rise, citizens gather outside banks demanding their savings. Panic spreads faster than truth. Cinematic sequences show the empire's psychological breakdown. Mothers crying over doubled food prices, soldiers arguing after missing salaries, merchants burning canceled contracts, nobles blaming one another in frantic meetings. The narrator explains the historical pattern. Debt never destroys an empire by itself. Fear does. And fear now infects everything. The government prints more currency to stabilize the economy, but inflation explodes. The value of money drops daily. People hoard goods, markets empty, and the empire begins to resemble a wounded beast struggling to stand. As protests erupt, the throne orders strict controls, wealth seizures, forced loans, emergency taxes. But each attempt backfires. Citizens riot, banks collapse, Soldiers rebel. Foreign powers sense weakness and cut trade routes, further suffocating the economy. In the final part of this section, the empire stands at the edge of total breakdown. Hunger grows. Internal provinces refuse to send grain. Border regions declare independence. The emperor, once confident and powerful, now appears exhausted in dim candlelight. The narrator states, "The empire did not collapse suddenly. It collapsed slowly, decision by decision, fear by fear, mistake by mistake." The section ends with a metaphorical shot, a single gold coin spinning on a table, slowing, wobbling, and falling flat. The documentary enters its darkest, most emotional phase. The empire is now unrecognizable. What were once vibrant markets are now vacant ruins. Public fountains stand dry. Soldiers wander streets in tattered uniforms. Hunger spreads like wildfire. Without money, the empire cannot fund its army. Without an army, it cannot protect its borders. Without borders, it cannot claim to be an empire. The final collapse unfolds in 3 stages. Stage 1, economic death. Currency becomes worthless, even beggars refuse it. People return to primitive trade, bread for cloth, grain for salt. The empire's greatest symbol of pride, its national treasury, stands hollow, filled only with dust and broken shelves. Stage 2, political death. Nobles flee the capital, generals fight each other, provinces secede, ministerial councils dissolve, and the emperor, once worshipped, sits alone in a silent throne room, staring at the loan contract that destroyed everything. Stage 3, civil death. Cities burn, archives vanish, knowledge is lost, families abandon homes and migrate in long, desperate caravans. The empire, once feared across continents, becomes a ghost, a distant memory. The narrator brings the message home. No enemy destroyed this empire. It destroyed itself. It trusted illusions. It ignored warnings. And it believed pride was safer than truth. The documentary expands on how modern nations may face similar risks: overconfidence in borrowed money, reckless spending, political arrogance, and financial fragility hidden beneath glittering cities. The final shots are symbolic. A torn loan contract drifting across an empty street, a rusted coin beside cracked stones, a child walking past ruins, unaware of the history buried beneath, clouds swallowing the remains of the empire. As the screen fades to black, the narrator leaves the audience with a final, haunting line. Empires do not fall when enemies attack. They fall when leaders sign the wrong document and refuse to see the consequences.